If you grew up in a small town, chances are you remember the little train depot there, which might have gotten torn down over the years. Well, folks in Cookeville still have theirs, along with the memories and a chance for people to relive them. Teresa Bush did just that on a recent visit.
This depot was built in 1909. It is pretty much like it was back then. The city of Cookeville actually bought the depot in 1975, and they paid $1 for it. And it sat in terrible disrepair for a number of years. And it really was a terrible eyesore.
But now the Cookeville Train Depot looks great. Several groups worked tirelessly to renovate it and turn it into a museum. Judy Duke is the director.
But we're very proud of this facility. We've tried to make it a destination place for tourists as well as folks who live in this area.
It's interesting to note that a Pennsylvania businessman is the one responsible for bringing the railroad to the Upper Cumberland. Alexander Crawford bought a bunch of land up in Monterey so he could mine the coal there for his industries up north, but he had a problem. He didn't have a way to get the coal out. The closest railroad to the east was all the way in Harriman. The closest railroad to the west was all the way in Nashville. So Crawford decided he'd build his own railroad. But he soon realized it was going to cost a whole lot more money than he'd ever imagined, so he had to sell the company. And that's when another energetic entrepreneur by the name of Jerry Baxter stepped in. He managed to raise enough money to complete what Crawford had dreamed about, connecting Nashville with Harriman by railroad. And Baxter decided to name it the Tennessee Central. Their train started rolling through Putnam County in 1890. The Cookeville Depot doesn't look like others of its day. Most were shaped like boxes. This one has an oriental flair about it because of the curvy and steep roof lines.
This building is the only one along the line that was built with this architecture. So we're on the National Register of Historic Places because of the age of the building and because of the uniqueness of the architecture.
But just as the train era boom came, it went. In 1955, the last passenger train came through. And in the late 60s, freight service ceased. The side of town that had grown went unnoticed for a long time until the depot renovation. Now it's the centerpiece attraction that's bringing folks back to the west side.
We're back on the upsurge. So that's a great thing for Cookeville, for Putnam County, and for this surrounding area.
The depot gets thousands of visitors each year. On this day, James Copeland donned his conductor's uniform and took us around.
This room was what we call the main waiting room.
James is one of the museum's full-time employees. His love for the place began when his mother brought him here to see a model set at the age of 8.
I walked in and it was instant falling in love. That was it, all it took. This room is where mostly all your passengers would have come in. They would either come in the back door, or if they were on this side of the building, they came in this way.
Now the room holds 2 scale model trains. One depicts downtown Cookeville in the 1950s, from the depot looking east down Broad Street. The other model is a little simpler, made of typical items found at most retail stores. And as you might expect, the glass protecting these models get a lot of smudges.
The younger generation, kids, they see the model trains and they get excited. They see the big trains out here, they just can't get enough of it. And this room is our station agent's office. This is more or less the brains of the whole depot.
It appears a station agent is still on duty. It's just Max. The mannequin is named after Max Wiggins, who worked in this room for many years. Tickets were purchased through the big bay window, and telegrams were sent and received from this room. How did you all collect so much of this?
Most of it's personal belongings that they took with them when they left the railroad. And then some of it is stuff that's been passed down through the generations. And this is our baggage room. We've tried to replicate what this room would have looked like during the heyday of the railroad, which would have been the 30s and 40s. And
Before joining the staff, James was a volunteer. He spent a lot of time with fellow volunteers Donald Smith and Jean Evelyn
It's
Warren.
going to be here at 3, and then we'll have the kids coming in.
Donald and Jean Evelyn give tours too. It's a special treat for visitors to hear them talk about what it was like to grow up in the day of the train.
Well, my father was Tennessee Central Rail freight agent at Cookeville, and I grew up in this town and spent a lot of time at his depot, which is down the tracks about 750 feet, and also spent a lot of time in this depot and listening to telegraph operators talk to each other and so on.
Mother would put a little dime in one corner of my handkerchief and a dime in the other corner of my handkerchief because I could ride from Cookeville to Allgood. The train went up about 11 o'clock. I could have lunch with my aunt, and then about 3 o'clock in the afternoon I could catch the train back to Cookeville. 20 cents round trip.
Very few people have such vivid recollections of life during the heydays of the train. That's why Jean Evelyn and Donald try to share their memories with as many visitors as they can. Their memories bring the museum to life and keep folks coming back to the Cookeville Train Depot again and again.
y'all know what kind of train that is?
What time is it, Lucas? I don't know. You don't know? That's
You don't know? Well, that's a passenger train.